The life cycle of a leaf, from seed to stardust, is not only the story of a tiny leaf, but a quiet journey that links the garden in front of your porch with ancient distant stars. Tonight, before you sleep, let me tell you this. From the moment a seed rests silently in the soil, to when the leaf opens its eyes to the light, quietly creating oxygen for human lungs, until it turns into humus to nourish the next generation, and further still, returns to the stardust where it once began. This is a gentle scientific story, accurate yet easy to understand, helping you both relax and feel your life has more order and meaning. If you feel at peace, please subscribe to the Smart Sleep channel so we can continue traveling together on journeys like this. Tonight, before you close your eyes, come back with me to a place where very few people ever stop to truly look. The very first moment of a leaf, when it is not yet a leaf, not yet green, not yet shade, only a tiny seed lying still beneath a dark layer of soil. Maybe outside your window, there is a small garden, an old tree, or just a potted plant on the sill. But beneath that seemingly quiet soil, every day, there are stories beginning without any applause, without any spotlight. A seed so small you might drop it without bothering to pick it up, carries within it a complete blueprint for the trunk, the branches, and every leaf that will one day catch the sunlight. Inside that thin shell is DNA, a history written over millions of years of evolution, preserved, passed on, revised, tested, failed, and risen again, so that tonight, somewhere on Earth, a seed can lie still in the soil like a promise not yet opened. The most beautiful thing is this: the life of a leaf does not begin with movement, but with rest. It does not begin in dazzling light, but in deep, moist, quiet darkness. Perhaps at your age, you understand that feeling more than anyone. Those phases when you seem to be stopped, not loud, no one calling your name, no achievements to show off, yet inside, something was quietly rearranging itself. The seed is not in a hurry. It does not demand the sun appear immediately, does not rage when the night stretches on. It simply lies there, waiting for enough moisture, enough warmth, enough chemical signals from its surroundings. Science calls this the optimal germination conditions, when moisture seeps into the coat, softening its structure, awakening long dormant enzymes to begin working, breaking down the tiny reserve of nutrients inside. The seed is like a small house already stocked with food and building plans, just waiting for the right time to open its doors. It does not give up because of one cold night, one day without sun, one brief spell of dryness. It waits. It listens to the outside world, not with ears, but through subtle signals. Temperature, water, oxygen, light. All of this happens in absolute silence. If you dug up the soil right then, you might think, nothing is happening at all. But it is exactly when nothing is happening that something immense is beginning. There have been nights in your life like that, haven't there? Nights you lie awake, feeling you've already passed half your life or more, and wondering, can I still change anything? Can I still begin something new? Or is everything already fixed? If tonight you are lying in bed, listening to these words with a bit of heaviness in your chest, try seeing yourself as a seed in a quiet phase. The seed cannot see the sky above. It knows only darkness and the weight of earth. But that very weight helps it take root, holds it in a place stable enough to prepare for its first breakthrough. If it were left dangling with no soil to hold it, no darkness to wrap it, it would dry out and die. Which means, in a very gentle sense, pressure and stillness are not enemies. but a thick blanket keeping warm what is about to arrive. Inside the seed, proteins, enzymes, and stored starch begin to mobilize. They do not argue over who is more important, do not panic about the future, and do not compare themselves to the tree next door. They simply do what they were made to do: convert energy, break through the shell, and prepare for the sprout to push up through the soil. The entire genetic blueprint does not step out and shout, "Look at me, I'm about to become a tree." It simply works, quietly, orderly, steadily. Just like all those years you quietly cared for your family, tried to do your duty, lived through illness, loss, moving homes, changing jobs, raising children, and then seeing them off. Outsiders only see the results. Few see the sleepless nights, the silent choices, the times you swallowed your pride, took the harder path without needing anyone to know. But like the seed, it is those very things that have written the design of the person you are today. And even if you are 50, 70, or over 80, the coding within you, not only your biological DNA, but your memories, your values, your kindness, your capacity to love is still there and can still sprout new shoots in its own quiet ways. Science tells us that no life begins from nothing. Everything is a continuation. The seed comes from the fruit from the flower from the branch from the tree from another seed further back in time. And you, too, are not a solitary, misplaced being in the universe, but the result of generations who lived, endured, and chose to go on. In your body lives the memory of your ancestors. In your eyes are reflections of those who loved you or hurt you, and unintentionally taught you to be stronger. The seed under the dark soil is not weak. On the contrary, this is its strongest stage, because it must decide, will it trust the blueprint within? It really has only two choices: remain forever still, or accept cracking open. But for the seed, cracking is not ruin, it is maturity. When the hard shell fractures, it is a sign that life is pushing through. Perhaps in your life, you've had your own cracks: an illness, a separation, retirement, a financial crisis, the loss of a friend. Those fractures are not always the end. Sometimes they are simply moments when the old shell no longer has enough room for who you are becoming inside. The seed does not return to its old shape, even though that shell once protected it. It allows part of itself to break so the rest can grow larger. You have done that many times already. Whether you named it or not, if we can look back at ourselves with gentleness, we will see how many times we quietly chose to go on, to choose kindness, to refuse bitterness, to care for others, even without applause. That is the enzyme, the energy, the good blueprint at work inside you. In the darkness of the soil, the seed cannot see its future, but it carries within a biological trust. If there is water, warmth, and time, it will find a way. At 60, 70, 80, you may no longer put much faith in slogans about reinventing your life or dramatic rebirth, like the advertisements shout, but perhaps you still have space for a very small, very quiet belief that each day you can still adjust a little, nurture something peaceful inside, a gentler habit, a thought less judgmental toward yourself, an evening without doom scrolling through news that scrambles your mind, but instead listening to a small story about a seed. That too is a form of germination. From a scientific point of view, life wastes nothing. Every cell, every flow of water, Every sugar molecule is used with purpose. In our inner life, we often waste so much. Waste worry, waste comparison, waste harshness toward ourselves. The seed does not compare itself to the oak beside it, does not blame the soil for being wet or the sky for being cold. It simply does what it was born to do. Slowly, patiently, faithful to its nature. Anyone in middle or later life can ask themselves very softly, what is the best part of my nature that I have forgotten? Kindness, generosity, accumulated wisdom, the ability to listen, or simply a calmness in the face of things that still make the young panic. If tonight you allow those qualities to wake up a little more, perhaps that is the little sprout pushing through the soil within you. Imagine this. In the gentle darkness of your room, your breath slowing, your heartbeat softer, your shoulders released. Somewhere in your memories, in your body, in your thoughts, the good enzymes begin to work, gathering what you've lived through, filtering what to keep, letting go of what is outdated. No noise, no need to prove anything to anyone. Just a very natural process of someone who has walked a long road and now has the right to live slowly, live deeply, yet still keep growing in a very delicate way. The seed beneath the dark soil reminds us, silence is not emptiness, slowing down is not uselessness, and age is not a full stop on transformation. It is only a phase of preparation for new shoots, no longer the blazing ambitions of youth, but wisdom, peace, the ability to be shade for others. You do not need to do much tonight. Just breathe softly. Let your body sink into the mattress. Let the story of the seed lying quietly beneath the dark soil seep into the tired corners of your mind, like a very soft reminder. Inside you, there is still a beautiful blueprint, the ability to sprout good things, no matter how noisy the world outside. And when your eyes close, you can allow yourself a small smile. In this very darkness, you are not standing still in vain. You, too, are preparing for another dawn of your own. Before we continue, let's take one slow breath in and let it go, as if the earth itself were breathing. We've just passed through the quiet moment of the seed in darkness, and now, let us gently ask a deeper, softer question. What happens at the very first moment it meets the light? What makes a tiny life know how to find its way toward the sun without anyone showing it the way? And within each of us, is there also such a leaning toward the light, waiting to be remembered? The first light never arrives with an alarm or an announcement. It is not blinding, not grand. It is usually just a thin strip slipping through cracks in the soil like a whisper. When the seed begins to crack, life inside it is awakened by warmth and moisture. But to know where to go, it needs light. From within the dark, the very first young cells begin to sense photons of light touching them. Special molecules called photoreceptors, like phytochromes and cryptochromes, act as biological eyes, even though the seed has no eyes. They perceive the intensity, direction, and wavelength of light, and then send chemical signals to other cells. This way, go this way. Science calls this process phototropism, a simple word that hides something almost sacred. Life instinctively knows its way toward the light. It needs no guide, no map. The direction is built into its very structure. And the most beautiful part, the light does not command. The light just appears. The seed decides. When that fragile sprout begins to push upward through the soil, it meets the resistance of the whole world. Soil is not an open door. It is heavy, cold, damp, and sometimes clutching the sprout as if wanting to hold it back. And yet it goes. Not because it is strong, but because it trusts the light. The cells on the side away from the light elongate faster, pushing the sprout to bend toward where the light is. And so, little by little, it rises. Not fast, not loud, no spotlight. Just like someone who has lived through many seasons and knows that what truly lasts always unfolds slowly. You may have had such moments when it felt like the whole world was dimming around you, yet somewhere a tiny thing appeared that made you want to lift your head. A sentence someone said, a sunny morning, a door you didn't expect to open, or simply the realization that you are still alive. At 50, 60, 80, light no longer comes from blazing slogans, fiery dreams, or promises to change your life. It comes from humble, simple but deep things, a genuine conversation, a memory of someone you loved, a small act of kindness you receive in a supermarket, an unhurried breath, an afternoon watching sunlight filter through leaves at your porch. Some things you don't have to learn again because they never left. You only have to remember. When the sprout rises, it is not only seeking the light, it is also beginning to create light for the world in a very real way. In the leaf, a molecule called chlorophyll begins to work. Chlorophyll absorbs light energy, converts it into chemical energy, and produces oxygen. The leaf, once it matures, it does not just live off the sun, it gives breath back to the living world. So moving toward the light is not only an act of survival, it is an act that makes giving possible. That makes me think of many older people I have met, people who have lived, lost, endured, and loved. People who are no longer loud like they were when young, but whose light is warm and deep. They do not need to talk much, do not need to be right, and do not need to win. They simply are, and their presence makes others feel at peace. Light is not brilliance. Light is direction. When a seedling emerges above the soil, it is still not yet a full leaf. It is only a thin green shoot, so soft that a strong wind could easily bend it. But it stays, not because of its own strength alone, but because of the roots holding it. Life always pairs the reaching toward light with the anchoring into earth. There are days, even years, when we have poured all our effort into standing up and forgotten that we also need to root down. Roots are what allow a tree to stand. Memories, gratitude, love, all the care you have given others, those are your roots. If you have ever loved someone wholeheartedly, you have roots. If you have ever patiently endured illness, you have roots. If you have ever silently shouldered hardship to keep peace in your family, you have roots. And when there are roots, even a thin thread of light is enough to keep you standing. The miracle is, the sprout does not know what its future will be. It does not know whether it will become a tall tree, a small shrub, or live only one season. It still moves toward the light, not because of certainty, but because that is its nature. We do not need to know the whole future to go on living. We only need to know our direction. And sometimes, direction is not a place we rush toward, but the place within, where we grow, quiet, and feel, this is right. Tonight, listening to these words in soft light, with your breath slower, your heartbeat steady, and a pocket of stillness in your chest, try asking, gently, without pressure, what is my light now? No need for a grand answer, just a single ray, something that softens you, something that lets you breathe deeper, something that makes time feel a little slower. Your light might be writing a few lines each night, calling an old friend, watering the plants on your porch each morning, listening to a piece of music that soothes you, or simply no longer blaming yourself. Everyone has a light to lean toward. No one is without it. If a seed underground, with no eyes, no ears, no memory, still knows its way, how could we, with a whole life of experience, love, and learning not? Tonight, before you sleep, you can place your hand on your chest, feel your heartbeat, and whisper to yourself, as if speaking to the green sprout within the soil, I know my way. There is no rush. I will arrive where I need to be. And when you close your eyes, you may find this more true than you thought. Because the light does not demand you be perfect before you turn toward it. It only asks that you do not turn away. Take one more gentle breath in and exhale slowly. We have just sat with the seed, finding the light. Now we ask a simple but deep question. After finding its direction, what happens when life wants to open itself to the world? In that moment, when the very first leaf unfurls tiny, but enough to change the fate of the plant, what can we learn from it? When the sprout breaks through the soil and meets the light, its small body has already done something extraordinary. It has survived, but survival is only the beginning. Now, it must grow, and to grow, the first leaf must appear. That first leaf is so thin that if you placed it on your hand, it would be almost translucent in the sunlight. Yet within that fragile thinness lies the power that begins an entire life. That first leaf, in English often called the cotyledon, the seed leaf, is not yet mature. It is the first leaf programmed to help the seedling create its own energy. It is like the very first letter the plant sends to the world, saying, I am here. I am alive. Imagine the moment in slow motion. A gentle morning, dew still on the soil, a tiny green shoot slightly parts, and then a leaf, so small, like a child's hand opening to greet its first light. No fireworks, no declaration, just a quiet, natural unfolding. Life is not noisy, it simply happens. But the most important thing is this. From the moment that leaf opens, it begins a miraculous work, one no animal can do. Photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is the process of turning light into living energy. Inside the leaf is chlorophyll. It absorbs sunlight and uses that energy to transform carbon dioxide from the air and water from the soil into glucose fuel for the plant. And in doing so, it releases oxygen. That means when the first leaf opens, it is not just receiving light, it is transforming light into life. Not only its own life, but ours as well. Every slow breath you just took in, part of it came from some leaf in a garden, a park, a forest far away. As you lie in bed tonight, breathing softly, your lungs are filled with the gift a leaf returned to the world. Life is woven in a benevolent circle, so beautiful we easily forget. The first leaf does not keep the light for itself. It turns light into energy and shares it. And through that, the plant grows. Then it makes more leaves. Then those leaves create oxygen so you and billions of other beings can live. Life not only knows how to receive, life knows how to transform. That is what makes a leaf beautiful, and what makes a human beautiful, too. In life, we cannot avoid hurt, loss, or disappointment. Some memories tighten the heart, times so exhausting we thought we could not stand again. Yet humans have one wondrous ability, like chlorophyll in leaves, the ability to transform. We can turn pain into understanding, failure into wisdom, loss into deeper gratitude for what remains, aging into calmness and warmth. This is not always spoken aloud. It happens in silence, like a leaf quietly doing photosynthesis without boasting. If you're listening to this on a quiet night, you have likely done this many times without noticing. You lived through a crisis and rose again, not because you did not hurt, but because you chose to transform. You saw someone suffer and you knew how to hold them without many words. You came to understand that anger can be dissolved by patience. You learned that silence can also be a form of love. All of those are photosynthesis of the soul. When the first leaf opens, it is not perfect. It can tear easily, wilt easily, and be eaten by insects. And yet it still opens. Because if it doesn't, the plant will never grow. We, too, have times we open our hearts like that. Unsure, unguaranteed, sometimes trembling. The first time you love is a leaf. The first time you truly forgive someone is a leaf. The first time you forgave yourself, perhaps the most beautiful leaf of all. One more delicate truth. The first leaf does not last forever. When the plant is strong enough, the cotyledon falls away. It does not mourn, does not cling. It knows its role is complete. There are phases in our lives just like that, only needing to happen once, yet changing everything. The first time you choose gentleness over a useless fight. The first time you listen instead of reacting. The first time you step out of the past without looking back. The first time you smile at yourself. These moments don't need witnesses. It is enough that you know. Between 45 and 90, many people feel they've passed the peak of life. But the leaf reminds us, life is not measured by peaks, but by transformation. It doesn't matter how fast or slow, how triumphant or modest. What matters is, how much light have you turned into inner goodness? If you've ever loved someone wholeheartedly, you have done photosynthesis. If you've faced illness with faith, you have done photosynthesis. If you've kept quiet to preserve peace at home, you have done photosynthesis. If you've lost someone and still chosen to live kindly, you have done photosynthesis. Life does not require you to be dazzling. It only invites you to keep transforming what has happened into something gentler. Tonight, before you sleep, place your hand lightly on your chest. Feel the warmth beneath your palm. That is living energy. That is the light you have been transforming all your life. It is not loud, but it is there. It is not flashy, but it is real. And whisper, as a leaf opening to the morning sky, I am not just existing. I am transforming. I am becoming something more beautiful. Then close your eyes. Softly, let the leaf in your mind open just a little more. Sleep will come, and tomorrow morning, when the first light touches your eyelids, trust that within you there is still the capacity to bring something gentle into the world. Like a thin, fragile leaf, carrying the hope of the whole tree, you, too, are carrying something very beautiful, and you are still opening. We have just opened with the first leaf and learned about life's miraculous power to transform. Now we can ask a soft but profound question. Why is a leaf green? What is happening within that green so quiet yet so essential that without it, the whole world would stop breathing? And within each of us, is there also an inner green? something that quietly sustains us but rarely gets noticed. The green of a leaf is not decoration. It is the sign of a living process, constant, intricate, and immense. Within each leaf are millions of chlorophyll molecules. If you imagine chlorophyll as countless tiny solar panels, then every leaf is a vast panel operating continuously from sunrise to sunset. These molecules absorb light, especially red and blue, and reflect green, which is what we see. That is why leaves are green. But what matters more lies behind that color. Chlorophyll is the foundation of photosynthesis, the process through which plants convert sunlight into chemical energy while producing oxygen. In other words, the green of leaves is the color of life in action. Pause for a moment. Imagine a spring morning, walking slowly beneath the trees, sunlight dripping through the canopy onto the ground. When you take a deep breath, you probably don't think about who made that oxygen, but in that moment, you are being sustained by countless leaves quietly doing their work. Without demanding, without noise, without being credited. Never stop until their season ends. Every leaf is an artist, but instead of painting, it is weaving the atmosphere. Science tells us most of the oxygen we breathe comes from forests, from marine phytoplankton, from leaves we have likely passed by without a glance. Our lives, every heartbeat, every second you're lying here listening to this story, are upheld by uncountable, nameless leaves that simply keep doing their work. There is a silent beauty in that, and if you've ever stood beneath a broad crown of leaves and felt the cool shade, you know there is a very real peace there. Not a piece of emptiness, but of life unfolding in its own unforced rhythm. Leaves do not ask, "Am I good enough?" Do not compare. "Am I greener than the leaf next to me?" Do not worry. "Will I still exist tomorrow?" They simply do what they are meant to do. Receive light, transform it, give. Perhaps in your life, you have met people just like that. People who are not loud, yet their presence is calming. Those who do not try to shine, yet are a gentle light. People whose words soften others, or who, just by sitting beside you, make your burden feel lighter. They have transformed their experiences, their pain, their trials into warmth and understanding. Just as a leaf transforms light into oxygen, the green of a leaf is not just a color, it is a reminder. Life is at its most beautiful when it knows how to nourish. Think for a moment about the times you have nourished someone, a growing child, a friend is going through loss, a sick relative, a weary partner, or your own self on days of exhaustion. You gave without demanding anything. You kept going, even when no one stood beside you to cheer. You became shade for someone. You became oxygen for someone. But perhaps you never named it. Maybe this is the moment to name it. You have been a leaf. The green of a leaf also changes over time. When it first unfurls, it is fresh, green, soft, bright, full of vitality. As it matures, it becomes thicker and stronger, like a person seasoned by experience. And when autumn comes, the green fades, revealing yellow, orange, red. The colors that were already there, but hidden beneath the green. That says something very beautiful. When we have passed through enough seasons, our deeper colors begin to show. When we are young, we mostly show vitality, like the bright green leaf. Over time, we reveal depth, wisdom, ripeness, kindness like the golds and reds of autumn. We do not lose our beauty. Our beauty simply shifts into a deeper, warmer form, one that others must slow down to truly perceive. Science and nature are always more subtle than we think. Standing under a canopy, we are not only in the shade, we are standing within a space where life is being created. We are breathing a gift that is given without asking for anything in return. If we step back and look at our own lives, we might ask ourselves, are we creating oxygen or consuming it? Are we nourishing or draining ourselves? Are we living like a leaf, able to transform, or are we merely trying to endure? The green of a leaf reminds us, life is most beautiful when it knows how to pass on what it has received. But giving does not mean depletion. A tree can only photosynthesize when it still has light, roots, and water. So it is with us. We can only nourish others when we ourselves are still being nourished. So if you are tired now, if you feel your strength is less than before, it does not mean you have lost your green. It only means you need light, water, breath, and rest so that the chlorophyll in your mind can begin working again. No one can stay green forever without care. We have walked through the gentle green of the leaf, the quiet, steady place where life is happening. And now, let us ask a question that seems simple but opens into a deep truth. What happens when summer comes? When the sun stands high and hot? When the light is at its strongest? When the leaf must work harder than at any other time of the year? What keeps it from growing weary, from holding back for itself, and instead continuing to give away every bit of energy it creates? And if we look at that, might it also be an image of ourselves in the busiest seasons of our lives? Summer is when the leaf works the hardest. Not spring. Spring is the season of beginnings, gentle and mild. Not autumn. Autumn is the season of release, of preparing to rest. Summer is the season of pouring oneself out, the season of long, bright days, and the leaf must receive all that radiant energy with no option to refuse. Throughout the summer, photosynthesis runs stronger than at any other time. The tree must grow, branches must lengthen, flowers must bloom, fruit must ripen, and all of these processes depend on the leaf. The leaf is like the energy heart of the tree, working all day to turn light into sugar, water into sap, carbon dioxide into oxygen. No one applauds it. No one thanks it. No one calls it by name. And it has never asked. The leaf does not keep the energy for itself, though it entirely could. All the energy it creates is carried through the veins of the tree to the roots, the trunk, the fruit, and the flowers. Every part of the tree is fed by the leaf's tireless giving. Seen this way, the leaf is not just a leaf, it is a way of living. We often praise the flower for its beauty, the fruit for its sweetness, the wood for its strength, but all of that comes from the leaf. The leaf is not the result. The leaf is the process. And in our lives, how many people have lived like leaves? A mother who spends her youth raising her children, and when they have families of their own, carries yet another layer of worry. A father who works through long summers, often in silence, just to keep a home standing. A grandmother who wakes earlier than the sun to cook the first meal of the day. A grandfather quietly fixes every broken thing without mentioning his effort. The summers of each person are different, but they share one thing: they are seasons of giving. In plant science, something is striking. As long as there is light, the leaf never stops photosynthesizing. Even in harsh heat, even when the weather is extreme, the leaf does not hoard the energy it has made, because the nature of the leaf is to nourish. The nature of life is to continue. If we look back on our own lives, we will see we have had such summers. A period when you worked more than you slept. A time when the whole family leaned on you and you did not complain. A time you hid your sadness so others could feel at peace. In those times, had someone asked, "Are you tired?" Of course you were, but you kept going, because that was love. And love does not demand repayment. The most beautiful thing about the leaf is this: it does not become weaker because it gives. It is giving that makes it strong. It is giving that lets the tree grow. And when the tree grows, it, in turn, shelters the leaf when the winds come. In nature, there is no meaningless sacrifice. The tree does not forget the leaf. As the tree grows and its crown widens, it creates shade. That shade lowers the temperature for the very leaves that are working, protecting them from burning and drying out. Life always returns what is given, but it returns it quietly, slowly, without spectacle. We may have given without seeing any response, but perhaps the response has already come in other forms. A child who grows up to be kind, a family that keeps its flame gentle and steady, a home filled with laughter, a heart at peace when looking back. Some gifts are not dazzling, but they are deep, very deep. The leaf does not work with light alone. It needs water from the roots. It needs minerals from the soil. It needs the trunk to hold it. It needs the air around it. This reminds us, no matter how much we give, we never give entirely alone. We lean on family. We lean on friends. We lean on community, or sometimes simply on the quiet trust that the sun will rise again tomorrow. No one can be both the leaf and the entire tree. No, one is meant to do everything. If there was a time in your life when you gave so much, you grew tired, drained, dry, that does not mean you were weak. It means you forgot that the leaf, too, needs shade. The leaf needs summer, but it also needs evening. It needs the hours when the sun softens, so it can rest. It needs to be allowed to fall when autumn comes, to drop to the ground, to become humus, to become nourishment for the tree's next cycle. In our lives, we too have an autumn, a season to set burdens down, a season to breathe, a season to be still, a season to allow ourselves not to be the strongest person in the room. Giving is beautiful, but sustainable giving means knowing how to return to yourself when needed. Tonight, before sleep, try something very gentle. Place your hand on your chest. Feel the warmth. No need to think of anything grand. Just ask quietly, what have I given today? Am I tired? Do I need a bit of shade? And if the answer is yes, then please allow yourself to rest for a while. Not to stop giving, but so that you can keep giving out of love, not out of exhaustion. A leaf cannot photosynthesize when the sun is too harsh, nor can a heart. Now close your eyes for a moment. Breathe in softly, exhale slowly. We have just stepped away from the long summer days, when the leaf gives its all to nourish the tree and the world. But a time will come when it cannot be summer forever. So what happens when the light lessens, when the air cools, when the leaf no longer has to strain to be the greenest, the strongest, the most useful? In that moment, when it no longer must push so hard, what hidden truth is finally allowed to appear? And in each of our lives, when we are forced to slow down, to face our own changing season, what are the truest colors we have long hidden from ourselves? As the long days of summer close, the earth tilts a little, and sunlight reaches the ground at a different angle. Days shorten, nights grow longer. The temperature quietly drops. The tree no longer receives the same energy. For humans, these are merely signs of autumn, falling leaves, cooler air, coats brought out again. But for the leaf, it is an important decision of life. It must economize. When the light dwindles and the cold seeps in, the tree can no longer afford to produce chlorophyll at summer's intensity. Chlorophyll, the maker of green, the catcher of light, the enabler of photosynthesis, is also costly. It takes energy to build and maintain. Without the promise of abundant light, the tree begins to pull back its investment. It breaks down chlorophyll in the leaves, retrieves precious components like nitrogen and magnesium, and sends them back into the trunk and roots, where they can be stored for the next season. And as that thick green curtain thins, something beautiful happens. Colors that have long been there, hidden, begin to appear. Carotenoids bring yellows and soft oranges. Anthocyanins bring deep reds and purples, sometimes stunningly vivid. They do not appear from nothing. Most of them were present already. But in summer, the strong green of chlorophyll covered everything, so we could not see them. Autumn does not arrive to add more color. It arrives to take away the green, so other colors are allowed to show. There is something very human in that. For much of life, we are taught to be summer green, productive, useful, busy, giving, never stopping, never weak, never excess. We cover ourselves in the chlorophyll of roles: parent, worker, provider, caregiver, bearer of burdens. We get used to being the one who handles, solves, and stands firm. And in those years, not every part of our true self gets seen. We hide our tenderness, our quiet preferences, our traits that only appear when we are not bracing ourselves against the world. When age approaches, like autumn, when strength is not what it was, when children have left home, when full-time work closes, when the roles that demanded we stay deep green gradually loosen, many people feel lost. They fear they are no longer useful, fear they are done, fear the world no longer needs them. But if we look with autumn's eyes, perhaps this is not an ending. It is the time when golds and reds, the deep, warm layers that duty once covered, begin to be seen. Autumn for the leaf is when its inner beauty surfaces. Autumn, for a person, if we allow it, can be when our deepest qualities show. Scientifically, as the leaf stops making chlorophyll, the tree is optimizing, conserving resources, preparing for winter, not wasting. It is wisdom, not meaningless decline. In life, when we stop forcing ourselves to race old races, stop demanding we be as we were at 30 or 40, when we permit ourselves to slow down, listen to our bodies, rearrange our priorities, we too are optimizing. We are giving ourselves the chance to live the remainder of our years with less noise and more authenticity. The golden leaf does not shout, "I am young, I am strongest." It whispers, "I have traveled a distance, and now I am beautiful in another way." In the quiet of your home, you can look back at all the things that once kept you up at night. Money worries, meetings, strained relationships, turning points you thought you'd never survive. And yet here you are, within you now. If you look closely, there is more than the scars of hardship. There is the rich tone of experience, of compassion, of understanding life. That is the golden red in your soul. It is slow, but deep, no longer bright like tender green, but to those with eyes, it is the most precious beauty. Autumn is also when people walk more, look up more, and marvel more. There is a gentle paradox. Just as the leaf prepares to leave the branch, people notice it the most. Maybe in your own life, you've seen this. Only as parents or grandparents grow old do we begin to truly see what they carried. The years they quietly shouldered. Choices that looked simple, but took courage. We see the gold in them: kindness, patience, steadiness. So why, when entering our own autumn, do we see only loss and not those deeper colors in ourselves? Autumn does not come to say, "It's too late." Autumn comes to say, "Now we can live at a pace that truly fits us." As temperatures fall, the tree no longer rushes into growth. It draws inward, prepares for winter, trusts the cycle will go on. It does not fight, does not cling to endless green. It accepts change, and in that acceptance, a new beauty blooms. For us, slowing down is not failure. Slowing down is an opportunity, a chance for longer, deeper conversations instead of hurried meetings, a chance to finish that book left half read, to return to a small hobby that once made you happy, to sit longer with a cup of tea, watch the sunset without thinking of tomorrow's work, to say a kind word you never had the time to say. The golden signal of autumn tells us real value is not born from endless growth, but from living true to our own rhythm. A green leaf is beautiful because it gives. A golden leaf is beautiful because it knows how to let go. Both are beauties of the same life. So too with people. Youth is beautiful for its daring, its striving, its endurance. Later years are beautiful for knowing when to stop, when to choose, when to keep what matters, and gently release what is done. Tonight, if you're listening to this with some worry about age, about health, about no longer being as before, allow yourself another way of seeing. Perhaps this is not the breathless tail end, but the arrival of autumn. And autumn, as you know, has never been the lesser season. Ask yourself softly, if I stop chasing what no longer fits me, what deeper things in me would have room to appear? Maybe it is patience in listening to the young, mercy toward your own past mistakes, the ability to smile at things that once made you furious, a peace that no longer needs to prove anything. That is your inner gold. It does not arrive with fireworks. It arrives on evenings like this. You lying still, breathing evenly, allowing yourself to relax, not striving, not bracing to be worthy, simply existing as you are. Natural, like an autumn leaf. And before you drift into sleep, you can hold one gentle question, strong enough to echo within. Will I allow my deeper colors to show, or keep hiding them under busyness I no longer need? The answer is not needed tonight. Only the knowing that you have the right to slow down, the right to a different kind of beauty, the right to be a golden leaf not proving, just radiating the warmth of a life fully lived. Then close your eyes. Let that gold softly spread in your mind like a mild evening light. Tomorrow, if you wake to a hint of chill, if sunlight slants across your window, perhaps you will smile a little. You are not younger, but you are deeper, and that is a gift only life's autumn can give. We have just walked through autumn's gentle gold, where the leaf no longer strains to stay green. But what happens at that final moment, that brief second when the leaf no longer belongs to the branch, yet has not touched the ground? Does it fall in meaninglessness? Or is there a quiet, orderly, wise decision from the whole tree behind it? And in our lives, when we release a role, a relationship, a habit, an old version of ourselves, can we see it as tenderly as we see a leaf falling? To the naked eye, a falling leaf looks random. A gust of wind, a swaying branch, and the leaf loses its grip and drops. But biologically, the story is far more delicate. Before the leaf falls, the tree has been quietly preparing from within. At the point where the petiole joins the twig, a special layer of cells gradually forms the abscission layer. This layer does not appear overnight. It develops as days grow shorter, temperatures lower, and hormones shift. Cells in this layer arrange themselves so that the connection between leaf and twig weakens in a controlled way, leaving a clean line where it can separate without harming the branch. At the same time, on the tree's side, a protective barrier forms a tiny biological scar, so that when the leaf departs, it does not leave an open wound for fungi, bacteria, or frost to invade. In other words, the tree does not lose the leaf. The tree allows the leaf to go. It is a deliberate choice to conserve energy, to survive winter, to keep trunk and roots the parts that must endure alive. If the tree tried to keep all its leaves through the cold, it would lose water, lose strength, and might die from its own refusal to let go. Letting go is a survival strategy. Perhaps you recognize yourself in this. For the first half of life, we are taught to keep the job, the achievements, the image, the role, the familiar strength, relationships long past their time, simply because we fear emptiness. But at some point, often after 45, 55, 65, life, like the seasons, begins to change its light. Things that once fit start to feel heavy. Things that once made us proud no longer reflect who we truly are now. Some days, we feel short of breath in the very life we ourselves built. And there, many make the mistake of letting go of failure. If a leaf were afraid of falling, it would dry out and cling, harming the branch. In people, if we cling to what has expired, stubbornness, overloaded roles, others' expectations, old resentments, we burn up the energy we need to live the rest of our lives more gently. Notice this gentle detail. Once the abscission layer is complete, even a very soft breeze can lift the leaf away. No storm needed, no violent yank. When the time is right, the departure is natural, almost tender. That does not mean the leaf was unimportant. On the contrary, it was so important that the tree was prepared thoughtfully to honor that moment. In life, graceful letting go is like that. Not a harsh break, but a quiet process of preparation. Preparation by looking honestly at reality. Has this thing finished its work in my life? Preparation by reclaiming what still serves us lessons, experience. Good memories like the tree reclaiming nutrients before the leaf falls. Preparation by building a healthy boundary. Clarity, self-respect, protection. So when a job, a relationship, or an old pattern leaves, we are not torn open anew. Letting go in panic can hurt deeply. Letting go of understanding can be very gentle. Imagine an autumn afternoon in New England, or a calm street in the Midwest, where you have lived or once visited. Trees lining both sides, leaves of gold, red, and brown, drifting softly onto the sidewalk. You walk, hearing the crisp rustle underfoot, the sky higher, the air clearer. No one looks at those fallen leaves and says, "How pitiful they failed." We see beauty, we take photos, we breathe more deeply. Yet when it is our own season of change, retirement, the empty nest, health that forces us to slow down, big roles folding, we speak cruelly to ourselves, I'm useless now. I do nothing worthwhile. I am a burden. If tonight such thoughts are visiting you, try answering them with the voice of a wise tree. I am not gone. I am changing form. The leaf does not vanish from the ecosystem. After leaving the branch, it lies on the ground and begins another journey, broken down by microbes, insects, fungi, becoming humus, returning minerals to the soil. The soil grows richer, roots are better fed, new leaves, new buds, new flowers, new fruit all grow from that enriched ground. Letting go is not the end of usefulness. Letting go is how your contribution changes shape. A person who retires after 40 years of work does not suddenly become excess. Their knowledge, experience, and perspective can become humus for the next generation. Through stories, advice, calm presence, or simply by not judging the young when they struggle. A grandparent listening to a grandchild's stories, asking gentle questions, that is a leaf feeding the soil. Letting go of a harmful relationship does not mean you cannot love. It may be the first time you love, properly loving yourself enough, not to sustain a pattern that wounds you both. The sadness of leaving the branch can, with time, break down into wisdom and compassion for others in similar traps. Letting go of an outdated self-image, always strong, always carrying, always fine, does not make you weaker. It lets others grow. Two, as a tree sheds leaves, it lightens its crown so the trunk does not break under the weight. The science of leaf fall teaches something deeply human. Nature is not afraid of endings. Nature is only wary of waste. If you cling to what no longer fits, you waste the energy needed to nourish the years ahead. Perhaps 10, 20, 30 more. If you grip an old role too tightly, you deny your deeper, truer self room to emerge. So how do we let go? Not by cutting off and denying, pretending the past never existed. The tree does not destroy the leaf as something shameful. It honors the leaf by reclaiming what is precious, then giving it a gentle exit. Letting go of a job. Maybe it begins with acknowledging you have given enough, learned enough, and now you need another form of contribution, quieter, but just as meaningful. Letting go of a role. Maybe it begins with accepting that your children have their own lives, and that love does not mean controlling everything. Letting go of self-blame. Maybe it begins with seeing that you are human, that you did the best you could with what you knew then. Letting go of an old hurt. Maybe it begins not with forgiving others, but forgiving yourself for carrying it so long. None of this happens in one night, just as the abscission layer does not form in one day. It takes time, awareness, and kindness toward yourself. Tonight, as your breath grows slower, imagine yourself as a tree that has lived many seasons. Picture a few leaves on your branches as things you know are ready to go. An old pressure, an unnecessary expectation, a repeated story of self-criticism. You do not have to rip them off, only acknowledge. Perhaps it is time. That acknowledgement is the beginning of the separation layer. Then, let time, gentle conversations, quiet nights like this, and the wisdom of your years do their work. One day, you will notice you no longer cling to that old thing with the same tightness. That is when even a soft wind is enough. Before sleep, keep one question in your heart, not to torment, but to illuminate. If I let one outdated thing fall away, what beautiful part of me will have the chance to live more fully? The answer is not needed tonight. It only needs to rest there, calm as a golden leaf about to leave its branch, knowing that falling is not the end. It is simply the next, gentler step in a life cycle larger than itself. And you, at any age, are still within that cycle. But after leaving the branch, what happens next? Does the leaf simply fall and disappear, or does it have another journey quieter, deeper, but no less important in the story of life? And if the leaf does not truly end, but only changes the way it is present, might our lives be like that too? When the leaf touches the ground, to the naked eye, it looks like the moment it begins to spoil. Colors fading, green to yellow, yellow to brown, its surface wrinkling, becoming brittle or mushy, no longer radiant on the branch, no longer shimmering in the sun. In most photographs, people capture autumn when the leaves are still in the air. Few photograph leaves lying on the earth, damp, dark, mixed with mud. But if we bend closer, slower, we will see the most delicate part of the life cycle beginning. Within that layer of fallen leaves, there is a whole world. Bacteria, fungi, tiny insects, earthworms, countless microscopic beings all join in a shared work. Decomposition. The organic compounds in the leaf, cellulose, lignin, proteins, sugars are gradually broken down. Carbon from the leaf returns to the soil, some released into the air as carbon dioxide, re-entering the cycle. Nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium, and other minerals that once kept the leaf green and strong are freed, blending into the earth, ready for the young roots of new sprouts to draw up. The dark, loose, rich humus you see beneath old trees or in a long-tended garden is the legacy of countless leaves that once lived, once gave oxygen, once caught the sun, once were radiant, then quietly dissolved to prepare the way for a new generation. No fallen leaf is useless. Biology calls it the nutrient cycle, the carbon cycle, and the nitrogen cycle. It sounds dry, but it is really the background music of all life on Earth. Without decomposition, there is no fertile soil, no seedlings, no trees, no leaves, no oxygen, no us. Every time a leaf breaks down, it is contributing to an invisible bank from which later generations slowly withdraw resources. Seen through the eyes of the universe, the leaf does not disappear at all. It simply steps away from the role of leaf on a branch to take on the role of humus in the soil. A quieter role, less praised. But without it, nothing else could stand. Human life is like that, too. In the years of strength, we often live like leaves doing photosynthesis, working, creating, nourishing, carrying. Our name may be attached to a position, a company, a project, a family, or a list of responsibilities. We stand on the branch, visible, easy to call, easy to mention. But over time, sooner or later, everyone reaches the point where those external roles fall away, one by one. Retirement, handover, stepping back, or simply no longer having the strength to do everything as before. And there, many people feel afraid they are no longer useful, afraid they are just taking up space, afraid of the silence of days without busyness, afraid of becoming fallen leaves in the eyes of others. But the fallen leaf does not sit there calling itself meaningless. It continues its work, only now in another environment, another form. The things you have given in your life, love, honesty, the way you keep your word, the way you apologize, the way you protect your children, the way you did not give up in difficult years. the way you are kind to those weaker than you, the way you do not gossip behind people's backs, the way you listen slowly. These have all dropped onto the soil of someone's life. Maybe they never said thank you. Maybe they forgot. Maybe they never said your name. But like a leaf decomposing in silence, those things have soaked in. A child who grows up in a home with decent adults will often naturally know what it is to care. Not to use violence, not to trample others to get ahead. They have good soil inside, even if they're not always aware of it. And where does that good soil come from, if not from the leaves? Those actions, words, choices that the previous generation left behind. You have been the green leaf on the branch, but you are also, day by day, becoming the layer of humus that nourishes those who come after, through your presence, through what you've done, and through what you've chosen not to do. Even the things you think are trivial, smiling at a server, not yelling at a noisy child, queuing without cutting, giving up your seat on the bus, are tiny mineral grains falling into our shared soil. A society with many such minerals has richer human ground. When a leaf decays, its old form is gone. If you try to pick it up, you'll see that it tears easily, no longer intact like when it was on the branch. But if you look closely, even in that decay, there is the structure of a process. The edges softened, the veins exposed like a fine map of how sap once flowed. Beautiful in a different way, worn, fading, but not cheap. As humans grow old, we may no longer be quick, may not remember everything, may not keep up with technology, but our faces carry the map of a life lived. Lines at the eyes from real laughter, furrows on the brow from sleepless nights, a slower gait but a gentler gaze. These are not just marks of time. They are the leaf veins of memory, of choices, of love. If we see only spent, we will be sad. If we see spent to pass on, we will understand. Science tells us no atom truly disappears. They only change place, change form, change role. The carbon that was once inside a leaf may tomorrow be part of a new trunk, or a petal, or the breath of a small animal. At its core, life is always an exchange. It may be, in some sense, that the best parts of our parents live on in the way we love others. The gentlest parts of a grandfather or grandmother live on in the way we look at a sleeping grandchild. Words of kindness spoken to us at 17 still shape how we speak to others at 70. Everything that has fallen, that has decayed, has not truly been lost. As you lie here listening to these words, you may remember people who are gone. Sometimes the grief of their absence makes life look like a straight line, ending in nothing. But if we look with the leaf's logic, what we call the end is only a doorway of passing on. They have left the branch, but the way they lived is still feeding you. A sentence, a hug, a good habit, a way of facing difficulty. You carry them without knowing. You are soil that contains them. So the gentle question for yourself is, what kind of humus do I want to leave? None of us can control all events, but we can choose the substance we leave for those after us. Bitterness or generosity, fear or courage, closedness or openness, judgment or understanding. We don't need a monument, a street name, or an award. We only need to know that by how we live each day. Even when no longer standing in the spotlight, we are quietly making someone's ground easier to live on. Tonight, before sleep, you might think about your own return to Earth, not as a frightening idea, but as a natural movement. Not, one day I'll vanish, but One day, what is good in me will remain. In another form, sleep will come, not as a space, but as part of a kind, circular rhythm. And if tomorrow you wake and see a fallen leaf at your doorstep, perhaps you will smile slightly. We, each of us, are also learning how to pass things on slowly, softly, but very truly. Let your body sink a little deeper into the mattress. Shoulders soften. Your breath slow. We've just traveled through the journey of the leaf returning to the earth, dissolving to nourish a new generation. But if we look deeper, further than that layer of soil, what then? Where did the fragments of leaf, of soil, of trees, of our own bodies truly begin? And if the atoms making up your heart, lungs, skin, memories once belonged to a star that exploded billions of years ago, does that change how we see ourselves, our age, the things we call the end? When we say the leaf returns to the earth, that story is true at the scale of our planet. But science reminds us, earth, water, air, tree, human body, all are built from the same tiny alphabet. Atoms, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, calcium, iron, particles so small the naked eye can't see them. Yet they are the foundation of everything we touch, everything we love, everything we lose. And what leaves many scientists and many quiet souls hushed is this: most of those atoms were not born on Earth. They were forged in the cores of stars. Inside massive stars, at unimaginable heat and pressure, simple particles like hydrogen are pressed together to form helium, then carbon, oxygen, neon, silicon, and heavier elements. When some of those stars reach the end of their lives, they explode as supernovae. Those explosions cast into space the heavier atoms created in their cores, particles of matter that drift for millions, billions of years, gathering with dust and gas, forming nebulae, slowly clumping, and eventually creating new generations of stars and planets. In one of those swirling cycles, our solar system was born. The Earth was born. Water, rock, and minerals were born. Then, from soil, water, and simple molecules, life began to assemble, to experiment, to grow over billions of years. And at some point, from atoms that once lived in stardust, a green leaf sprouted outside your window. And one day, from atoms that once lived in stardust, there came a human heart beating in a chest. Your heart. The strange thing is, we often say, look up to the sky for something higher and keep your feet on the ground. But materially, sky and earth are using the same language. The carbon atoms in that autumn leaf may once have been part of a distant star, and one day may become part of a muscle cell in a child running through a park. Everything goes in circles, but does not vanish. So when you hold a leaf in your hand, you are touching the history of the universe. When you place your hand on your chest, you are touching stardust that has lived longer than any dynasty, any border, any worry of a brief human life. There is something deeply freeing in that thought. Not a grand idea to escape reality, but a way of seeing that softens very human fears. Fear of aging, of weakness, of no longer being able to do as before, of leaving this world. If everything that makes us up has wandered through space, has already gone through birth, death, change countless times before it came to spend these decades as us, then our going is no longer a blunt, dead-end line. It is a small stretch in a much broader chain of transitions. The leaf is one chapter. We are one chapter. You might recall your youth, first job, wedding day, new home, newborn child, a move to a new city, choices to turn left or right. Back then, you may have felt everything depended solely on your decisions. Looking back now, you may see more clearly. Many other things walked beside you, unexpected chances, people who arrived at the right time, even mistakes that pushed you into new directions. And beneath all of it ran a very quiet foundation. You continued to exist. Your heart kept beating. Your lungs kept breathing. Cells renewed. Atoms moved through you, stayed for a while, and moved on. Science gives us an image both precise and gentle. The human body is not a solid, unchanging block, but a flow. Each day, cells die, and new cells are born. Water in, water out, air in, air out. Materially, we are not fixed, but a continuous replacement. What you call me at 70 is no longer made of the same cluster of atoms as me at 7. Yet, the story is continuous. Here is the subtle point. What makes you is not just the material, but the way that material has been arranged into a story. And this is where the story of Leaf Stardust self-development meets. You cannot control that you are made of stardust. That has long been true, but you can choose how to tell the story of that dust. You can tell it fearfully. None of it matters, everyone goes. No one remembers me. Or you can tell it more gently, just as accurately. I am part of something very long. I have been temporarily given a body, a life, and some relationships. My task is to live so that the dust passing through my life carries something a bit warmer, kinder, when it moves on. You don't have to do anything great. A leaf does not need to become an ancient tree to be worthy. It only needs to fulfill its role, do photosynthesis while green, show beauty in autumn, feed the soil when it falls apart. Humans, too. You may have thought your worth lay in how much you could do, build, and keep. Later, when strength slows, and those things are no longer all in your hands, you feel lost. But if you see yourself as a journey of stardust, physically precise, emotionally gentle, you will find another measure, how you have treated the dust while it bore your name. You have used it to hold someone who is trembling, to cook meals, to do honest work, to correct a mistake, to wipe away tears that weren't your own, to write a line, speak a sentence that lightens someone's load. Not to inflict another needless wound. In those moments, your atoms have helped make this world a little more livable. That is what remains, not the name on a sign. Another lovely thing, if we truly feel that we are Earth and are the universe, we feel less alone. On sleepless nights, at the window, under the dark sky, it is easy to feel small, aging, running out of time. But those stars, those streaks of light, that darkness, are not outside your life. They are the origin of your very substance. You are not looking at somewhere else. You are looking at home. This does not erase the sadness of death, but it makes that sadness less sharp, less isolating. It is like shifting from "I am being taken away" to "I will be returned." Returned to the earth, to the wind, to the flow of matter and energy that has fed me all my life. And between those two ends born from stardust, returning to stardust, we get a span of time. For those listening to this channel, that span may already be very full. 40, 50, 70, 80 years. Long enough to know life is more than milestones. Long enough to know you've been wrong, and that does not erase the times you were right. Long enough to see a simple truth. What warms you most is not when you prove you are better than others, but when you manage to be a decent human being in your own way. So perhaps the final question of this part for you before sleep can be very small, but enough to resonate inside. If I know I am just a very short chapter in the vast book of the universe, how would I like this chapter to feel when it's read? No one else reads it for you. There is no judge, no score, only your own feeling when you look back. How did I use this gift of being alive? You may see that among the mistakes and incompletions, there are many gentle passages, many fine decisions. Many times you chose the hard but right path, the tiring but kind path, and chose to slow down rather than hurt someone. If you gather those moments, they are enough to soften your heart toward yourself. Notice your body now, your breath deeper, eyelids heavier, mind slower. You don't need to remember all the details. Just hold one thought, light as a single thread. I am not just a name on a few papers. I am part of the earth. I am part of the people I have touched. And deeper still, I am Stardust, temporarily in this shape to love, to learn, and then to return. With that thought, you can rest. Not as someone afraid of time running out, but as someone who trusts that even sleep is part of this gentle cycle. Rest, then wake, and one day, rest longer without being lost, only changing place, only changing role, like a leaf, like a star. If from distant stars, cosmic dust gathered into earth, then into trees, into leaves, into our very bodies and our breathing, the journey of a leaf is no longer just nature's story. It is like a small mirror reflecting the way life itself works. Born in darkness, seeking light, giving endlessly, changing color when it's time, letting go of the branch, returning to earth, and further still to Stardust. Having walked with the leaf this far, perhaps what remains before you sleep is not more information, but a very soft question meant only for you. Amid all these circles, what are you quietly nourishing? Let the room grow a little darker if you can. Let the noise step back. Inhale slowly. Let your breath reach down into your belly. Pause for a moment, then exhale a little longer than you inhaled. That is enough. No expert meditation, no complex technique, just a signal to your body. Tonight, I am allowed to be lighter. And as you lie there, in the in-between of waking and sleep, let us look back over the whole story of the leaf, only to arrive at one last point that is really another beginning. A small leaf, if fully told, has done many things. Patiently waited in the dark, dared to push through the soil to seek light, unfurled to turn light into energy, been as green as it could in summer to feed the tree, the fruit, the shade, turned gold to signal the changing season. Let go of the branch not from uselessness, but to protect the tree, decayed into the soil to feed the next generation. And deeper still, continued the cycle of atoms that were once stardust. It never needed fame, never needed credit, never needed to be remembered. Yet every stage of its life had meaning. The question for us, at an age when we've already walked a long part of the road, is not, have I done as much as others? But, throughout my years, what have I quietly been nourishing? Whether we notice or not, each passing day, we are feeding something, a belief, a habit, a way of treating others, a voice in our own head, a way of seeing life. Some people spend a life nourishing patience, moving through hardship without hurting others more, raising children in scarcity while keeping kindness, accepting a little loss so others can breathe easier. Some nourish warmth, always remembering to greet, to listen, always leaving a seat open for someone's return. Some nourish curiosity and learning, not letting age become an excuse to shut out the new. These things are not loud, but like the leaf, they quietly feed the tree that is their family, their community. And there are other things we sometimes unknowingly feed. Old resentments never laid down, an inner voice that constantly criticizes, endless comparisons between our life and others, the feeling we are expired, no longer of use. Those things, if fed too long, are like dry leaves refusing to fall. They drain the sap, break the branch where new buds could grow. So, the question before sleep is not only, what have I done, but what am I allowing to live off my energy? Are you nourishing hope or despair, gentleness or bitterness, curiosity or closure, a softer version of yourself, or the outdated image that no longer fits? Night is a good time for such questions, because day is spent reacting, replying, organizing, worrying, managing. Night, when you no longer have to perform, gives you the chance to look deeper without building a wall. And at your age, this ability to see deeply is clearer, because you have a whole life to reference. If a leaf dares to go the full way, from darkness to light, to giving, to changing color, to letting go, to returning, then perhaps the most human thing we can do for ourselves is not to stop halfway, not to stay stuck in the phase of must prove, must keep all, must hold everything, when deep down we already know some things are finished, some things are enough, some things should turn to humus to nourish something else. You do not have to let go of everything, only the things that are clearly weighing you down, an expectation that no longer fits, a standard of perfection that only exhausts you, a guilt for old mistakes you have already paid for, a role of always strong that keeps you from saying, I'm tired. When we set these down, a little space opens inside us, empty like the ground after the leaves fall. Many fear emptiness, fear not knowing who they are without old labels. But like soil, that emptiness is not barren. It's where new seeds can sprout. New sprouts at this age are not necessarily big projects or grand goals. Often they are small but true. A sprout of acceptance. I am not perfect, but I am enough to love. A sprout of gentleness with yourself, allowing rest, not scolding yourself when your body slows. A sprout of a light habit, a slow morning walk, a few lines written at night, calling an old friend, saying thank you sooner. A sprout of a new way of being present. Instead of solving everything for your children, stepping back to listen, being a calm anchor, a sprout of small joy, learning something new with no need to apply it, just because it keeps your mind bright and glad. These sprouts need no one's approval, no online proof, no record. They are what make the rest of your life not just waiting, but another cycle of living. Deeper, slower, with its own meaning. Science gives us a firm frame. Nothing truly stands still. Energy and matter only move from form to form. A human life looks like a straight line, but in truth is a sequence of small circles, learning and forgetting, loving and losing, beginning and ending, breaking and healing. Every time we dare to let go of the old and allow something new, we are living in tune with nature's law, not against it. In this quiet room, ask yourself honestly, Over all this time, not prettied up, what have I been nourishing that deserves to continue? And is there one thing, just one small thing I've carried too long that I can begin to put down? You don't need to say it aloud. No big promises. Just recognition. You may realize you still want to nourish kindness, even in a complicated world. Still want to nourish a connection with family, even as everyone scatters. Still want to nourish the ability to listen rather than judge. Still want to nourish the belief that any day, however late, can be a little softer. And perhaps you'll see it is time to let go a little of the habit of belittling yourself, of sentences like, "I'm useless now, I only burden my children," of taking on all others' faults as your own, of needing to be right in every small argument. If a small leaf can trust life's rule completely, to dare to be fully green, to turn gold when it's time, to fall when it must, to dissolve to feed new seeds, then perhaps we, too, can trust our own capacity to transform. None of us knows how much time remains, but every night before sleep, we all have the same brief moment, the closing of a day, just one day. And in that closing, we can choose how to speak to ourselves. You can tell yourself, "Today I didn't do enough. I'm getting old too fast. I'm not who I used to be." Or you can change to another voice, gentler, deeper, true to all the leaf has taught us. Today, clumsy as I am still nourishing something in me. Tomorrow, if I put down a little of what is unnecessary, maybe that good thing will have more room to grow. And that's it. No need to analyze more. Let that question stay like a very small seed. You pull the blanket up a little. Adjust to make your back more comfortable. Loosen your hands. Your breath is steady, eyelids heavy. Outside, whether a noisy American street or a quiet neighborhood, leaves still fall, seeds still sprout, stars still fuse the atoms that will someday become life. In here, you only need to sleep. The rest, the slow movements of your soul, the quiet sprouting of new seeds within you will do their work naturally, as the leaf has done for billions of years, without hurry, without noise. And if tomorrow, in some small moment, you find yourself wanting to be a bit kinder to yourself, a bit warmer to others, that will already be the most beautiful answer to tonight's question. You can close your eyes now. Let your thoughts fade like mist. If your mind still wants to wander, let it continue the journey to the next video, where we'll go deeper into the mysteries of the soul. And if your body is tired, just let this voice lull you into sleep. No need to try, just breathe, and remember, everything you're searching for is already resting quietly inside you.